Denny Hamlin just said something that nobody in NASCAR expected to hear. Not from a three-time Daytona 500 winner, not from a man with 60 Cup Series victories, not from someone who has spent 20 years proving he belongs in the conversation with the all-time greats. But he said it anyway, out loud on the record in front of the cameras, and now every garage at every track on the schedule is talking about it. After what Tyler Reddick did in the first 6 weeks of the 2026 NASCAR Cup Series season, Denny Hamlin looked straight into the media and called him more complete than himself. That is not a throwaway compliment. That is not a polished answer from a team owner trying to hype his product. That is a 45-year-old Hall of Fame candidate staring at what the sport is becoming and telling you exactly what he sees. But here is what makes this story so much bigger than one quote. Because when you understand where Reddick has been, what Hamlin is actually saying underneath the words, and what the standings look like right now, this moment stops being a soundbite and starts being a turning point. Let us get into it. At Phoenix Raceway on March 8, 2026, the roughly 1-mile dogleg oval in Avondale, Arizona delivered a race that reshuffled the early season pecking order in ways that are still playing out. Ryan Blaney and the 12-team Penske Ford took the win, crossing the line 0.399 seconds ahead of Christopher Bell. Kyle Larson in the 5 Hendrick Chevrolet came home third. Joey Logano in the 22-team Penske Ford had won the pole at 135.357 miles per hour. Ty Gibbs in the 54 Joe Gibbs Racing Toyota was fourth. Denny Hamlin in the 11 Joe Gibbs Racing Toyota came home fifth. Tyler Reddick in the 4523X iRacing Toyota finished eighth, after his bid for a fourth consecutive win fell short in the closing stages. Ryan Blaney won Stage 1, Christopher Bell won Stage 2. After the race, Hamlin faced the media, and when the conversation turned to his co-driver, the man whose car he also owns through 23XY Racing, Hamlin did not give a diplomatic non-answer. He gave a real one. But before we get to what Hamlin said at Phoenix, it is worth going back to where the quote actually originated. Because the most direct version of this statement came after Race 3, after COTA, in the post-race media availability that followed one of the most remarkable stretches of driving the Cup Series has seen. "He's complete," Hamlin said, on record, sourced by NASCAR.com. "The one area that we continue to work on with him is the short tracks. I think that's where he can still improve a little bit, but we're working pretty hard on improving him at those types of tracks. But he's complete, and certainly more complete than I am at this stage. He's got really good things going on. More complete than I am at this stage, from a 60-win driver, from a man who has 2 wins at Phoenix alone. Let that land, but that is only half the story. To understand why Hamlin said it, you have to understand what Tyler Reddick has done to start this season, because what he accomplished in the first 3 races of 2026 has not been done in the Cup Series since the sport began in 1949. Race 1, the Daytona 500. Reddick navigated the drafting chaos of Daytona International Speedway, survived the late race carnage that took out multiple contenders, and took the checkered flag. His reading of traffic, his patience in the draft, everything Hamlin later praised as strategic maturity, was on full display. Race 2, the Auto Trader 400 at Echo Park Speedway. And this one is where the story gets surreal. On lap 160, Reddick was caught up in a multi-car accident that ripped the right front fender off the 45 Toyota. Reddick kept driving. In double overtime, with a car that was aerodynamically compromised and should have been a non-factor, Reddick found a way to get a push assist from Chase Briscoe, reportedly, according to Reddick's own post-race interview, and won the race. Without a right front fender, in overtime. If you tried to write that script, nobody would believe it. Race 3, the circuit of the America's Road Course in Austin, Texas. A completely different discipline. Tight corners, elevation changes, a track that exposes any weakness in a driver's technical toolkit. Reddick held off Shane Van Gisbergen, a driver who has made a rapid rise through the NASCAR ranks, with composed, disciplined driving. 3 wins. 3 different track types. The first driver to win the opening 3 races of a Cup season in the entire history of the sport. On the Actions Detrimental podcast, Hamlin was even more direct about what he had been watching. That Reddick had been exceptional and was driving better than anybody right now on the intermediate tracks, and that if he keeps it up, he would be tough to beat in the playoffs. That praise is coming from a man with a complicated relationship with this moment, Because Hamlin co-owns 23XI Racing. He helped build the team that Reddick drives for. Part of his legacy is now tied to whether Reddick wins a championship. So is he just talking up his investment? The nuance here matters. When Hamlin says, "more complete than I am at this stage," he is not writing himself off. He is making a specific, calculated observation about where Reddick sits as a driver right now. His range, his adaptability, the way he has reduced the number of weaknesses on his profile, and the short track comment is not a casual qualifier. That is the honest footnote that tells you Hamlin's assessment is real, not PR. If he was purely promoting his driver, he leaves that out. And then came Phoenix. The Phoenix race itself was where Blaney and Penske answered the story Reddick had been writing. Through the first two stages, multiple drivers were in contention. Blaney won Stage 1, Bell won Stage 2. In the closing laps, Blaney's team executed and he pulled away to the win. For Reddick, the finish was 8th, a result that snapped his 3-race winning streak but did nothing to diminish what came before it. He still banked points. He still held the points lead. And the quote Hamlin had delivered at COTA was already out in the world, impossible to walk back. Hamlin's 5th-place result at Phoenix was solid but unremarkable. He is still accumulating points. He has been consistently inside the top 10 through the early weeks of the season. But the gap between being in the playoff field and being the playoff favorite is widening every week that Reddick wins and Hamlin does not. The fastest 4-tire pit stop average in the Toyota camp right now sits at 12.2 seconds for the JGR-affiliated teams, one of the quickest averages in the garage. Both JGR and 23XI Racing share Toyota racing development engines and infrastructure. The equipment gap between Hamlin and Reddick is essentially zero. What Hamlin is acknowledging is not a resource advantage. He is acknowledging a driver. But the real fallout did not happen on the track. It happened when Hamlin's comments hit the internet, and the racing community started processing what it actually means for a co-owner to say this publicly about one of his own drivers. The social response was immediate. Fans broke into roughly 2 camps. One group read it as a genuine, classy acknowledgement of excellence from a veteran who has earned the right to evaluate talent. The other group raised an eyebrow at the business context, wondering whether Hamlin's financial stake in Reddick's success colors any public praise. But here is what cuts through that debate. The quote is too specific to be pure spin. Hamlin called out the short track weakness. He said, "at this stage," not in a way that diminishes Reddick, but in a way that situates the comment as a real-time assessment rather than a career summation. And the podcast version of his comments added the honest caveat that the season is long and Hamlin expects to be back in contention. This is not a man conceding the championship. This is a man telling you the truth about where Tyler Reddick is operating right now, and that truth has points implications attached to it. And when you look at the standings now, you will see why this changes everything. Through Phoenix, Tyler Reddick leads the regular season standings by approximately 60 points over Ryan Blaney. He carries a substantial playoff points cushion built on 3 race wins, each worth 55 points under NASCAR's updated format for 2026, an increase from the previous value of 40 points, explicitly designed to reward regular season aggression. Reddick's 3-win start has put him in a structurally dominant position. Before Phoenix, Reddick had led by over 70 points in the overall standings. After Phoenix, Blaney shaved some of that advantage with the win, but Reddick remains clearly in front. Bubba Wallace had moved into the top 3 of the standings as well. The chase format does not begin until the summer. There is runway for other contenders to close the gap, but every playoff point Reddick banks now is a point he does not have to chase later. For Hamlin, his points position keeps him comfortably inside the playoff field. He is not in danger. But the distance between being in the playoff field and being the championship conversation is widening. Hamlin remains winless through the first 4 races of 2026. And for a driver with 60 career victories, that is a number that has started to surface in media questions. The Toyota manufacturer picture is complicated. Multiple Toyota drivers are strong in the early standings, led by Reddick. But Blaney's Phoenix win, Logano's pole, and the overall competitiveness of the Penske camp is a clear message. When Blaney won Phoenix and Bell finished second, that was a statement from the blue oval side of the garage. And that sets up what could be the most important race of the season, at least this early in the year. Las Vegas Motor Speedway on March 15th, 4 o'clock Eastern on FS1. 1.5 miles of worn asphalt, 2-degree banking in the corners, wide lanes, and the kind of two-groove racing surface where passing requires a real plan rather than a lucky bounce off the wall. This is an intermediate track, the same category of racing that Hamlin specifically praised Reddick for dominating right now. Reddick arrives at a track where he has shown recent mastery, riding momentum that no driver in Cup Series history has matched through 3 races, with a car setup that has been building around intermediate performance all winter. For Hamlin, Vegas is the opportunity to answer the story he partly created with his own words. He has 2 career wins at Las Vegas. He knows the track. His JGR pit crew is among the quickest in the garage when the stops are clean. If the strategy executes and the 11 Toyota comes out of a pit cycle with track position, Hamlin is more than capable of running up front. But the storyline has already been written. Reddick arrives at Las Vegas as the points leader, the win leader, and now, publicly on the record from his own co-owner, the driver that Denny Hamlin himself identifies as the most complete in the garage. There is a version of the next few weeks where Hamlin wins Las Vegas and reframes everything he said at Cote as context rather than concession. And there is a version where Reddick wins again, and the question stops being whether Hamlin meant it, and starts being whether the rest of the garage is ready to admit it too. The Hendrick drivers, the Penske camp, the midfield contenders hunting for a run. Every one of them is watching the 45 Toyota right now, and every one of them heard what Denny Hamlin said. The green flag drops Sunday at Las Vegas, and the answer to every question that statement opened up could be 40 laps from the end of that race.